This is the market recap for Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. And the market had a pretty wild day. We'll get to the individual stocks in a little bit. We'll stick with the format of going through the indexes, ETFs, leaders, and then a watch list going into the next day, or watch list slash kind of important stocks that I want to cover in the video. So overall, great action today. Nasdaq finished up 0.8% and finished up 0.7% from the opening price. Just another strong move, riding that 5-day EMA higher, highest close since we've rallied off the lows. Overall, great action out of the index. SPY, higher highs, higher lows, closed back above these two gap down zones. So now there's no gap downs to deal with since we've rallied off the lows, which is just another great sign for the market. IWO, really impressive action. We talked about this yesterday, how it's been lagging a little bit, but still setting up constructively with this kind of undercut of the 20-day EMA when we opened on the low on the 23rd, rallied back through that key moving average, the 20-day EMA, gapped up the next day, consolidated a bit. Today, we gapped higher, closed strong, up 1.6%. Looks like we're going to be testing that 200-day moving average before we get some more distribution. ARKK, another kind of ETF I use to just track the general kind of growth market. And this had a good day, up 1.4%, higher highs, higher lows. Didn't quite eat into that resistance gap off the rally high point where we gapped down there, but still strong action, slightly less volume today. And actually, I'm a little surprised this was so strong given the weakness in Tesla that we'll cover in a little bit. Uh, Next, we have Bitcoin. We were talking about this yesterday, and I think on Sunday a little bit, where if the market was going to get back into gear after a week or two of consolidation, we saw Bitcoin as a theme or crypto as a theme that had rallied initially and has made new highs and was pulling back in an orderly fashion to the 20-day EMA. And we either wanted to see an undercut and rally of that 20-day or a gap and go situation. And that's what we got today, a gap and go, higher highs, higher lows, close back above the 5 and the 10-day moving average, up 1.8%. And hopefully we can continue on here, make new highs, because there's whenever crypto is working, that means that growth stocks are tend to be strong and tradable. So good to see a reaction off the 20-day. Hopefully we get right back up to previous highs there. Next, we'll go to the ETF list. Not going to cover every single ETF, but wanted to highlight a couple. TAN Solar ETF leading today. Nice undercut of the support gap, rally back through the 5, the 10, the 20-day EMA, and closed into this resistance gap. We saw that eat away. When I say the resistance gap got eaten away, excuse me, that just means that price has closed up into that area, and we can reduce that gap down zone. So good action out of TAN. We don't want to see this leading because it's usually a contra indicator to the market. But BLOK, BLOK, this is the crypto type ETF that I've been tracking. Great action, similar to Bitcoin. Gaps through the 5 and the 10 EMA, closes right at the high of the day, and closes above this gap down zone. So awesome action out of BLOK. SMH, really good action today. Closed back right near highs. So right where we opened after NVIDIA's earnings on last Thursday, we're right back to that area on a little bit less volume, but I mean, price comes first in my analysis and then volume. And price is doing exactly what you want to see. We undercut the 200-day moving average, got to the 20-day EMA on Friday, followed that up with a strong day on Monday, and followed through on Tuesday. So if semiconductors can come back into this market along with Bitcoin, I think more and more that breakout of the consolidation on the NASDAQ will stick. NLR, wanted to cover this, and maybe we can leave most of the conversation to the individual stocks, but we had news that Meta was partnering with CEG for their kind of AI energy consumption. Good start to the day with a massive gap up, but gave most of that back in some distribution volume there. Still closed above the 5-day EMA, still had an unfilled gap to the upside, still up 1.8% on the day, but a little bit concerning that we've had these kind of two distribution days from the top. But until we can close under the 5 day, I don't think it's too much to worry about. We've had a nice solid base, made new highs, and now we're just kind of consolidating there. The other group I wanted to point out was Cyber, made new highs, strong close today. Um, CrowdStrike reported earnings after the close, down 7%. We'll look at that chart when we get to the leaders. But overall, this has been a leading theme. Even with one bad report, I don't think that it's just going to fall apart here. I think, if anything, that bad report might give us some nice spots to build exposure into the group. IGV, the software ETF, double bottom base, kind of working on a handle right now. Good action today, opening near the low of the day, closing near the high of the day. If we can get through this resistance gap, chances are we get to new highs relatively quickly. And then just on the weaker side, wanted to cover GDX, gold miners. Not a bad day overall. Did have a gap down, but we closed at the high of the day. Still closed over the 5 day EMA. And overall, this is another kind of leading theme in the market, along with, where's ITA? ITA, the aerospace and defense ETF, just a picture perfect trend above this 5 day EMA. Higher highs, higher lows the entire way. Anytime that sequence of higher highs and higher lows gets snapped, we get supportive action at the 10 day EMA. So, of the leading groups, I think we have defense, we have gold, we have hopefully crypto coming back into it, semiconductors coming back into it, nuclear slash AI energy holding strong, holding that 5 day EMA, and then cybersecurity rounding out the leading groups. Speaking of the leading groups, now we can take a closer look at some of the leading stocks in the market. I have nine here. You could populate this with probably 12, 15 names, and you can make a good argument for most of those, which just shows you how strong the market's been. But overall, I really think Hood has been like the market leader off the lows, and it's acting like it again today. Up 5.5%, opens up with a gap up, mini sell off, but closes near the high of the day. And really, like, the only time this gave you an entry point was coming into that 10 day EMA in the support gap on Friday. That should have been a buy point for me. I kind of figured that we would need more of a handle here instead of kind of wedging up and then having that 1 day shakeout before higher. But again, that shows you how strong the market is. It's not making it easy to build exposure in long consolidations. If you're going to be trading the best stocks in the market, which ideally we are, right? We're trading the best of the best. Sometimes you have to find creative ways to get in them while still managing your risk. Friday was that day for my system, and I botched it. Did not put in any exposure there. So not ideal for me, but ideal for anyone who does hold Hood. Palantir, really tight day, slightly up on the day, up 0.8%. Low of the day at the 5 day EMA. Again, open and close right on top of each other, which is what you want to see, outside of like a really nice blue bar here. Any tight price action above the 5 day is constructive action. Now we get to CrowdStrike. This did make a new all-time high before or during market hours, but if we switch to 5 minute chart, we can see the action in after hours down through the support gap, but so far bouncing a little bit from there. So one thing that I'll be looking at tomorrow on the daily chart is if we open near this support gap, a shakeout of the 20 day EMA and this kind of breakout pivot retest at 450. That's a spot where I'm going to be trying to build exposure into this. Like we talked about earlier, cybersecurity is one of the leading themes, if not the leading theme in the market right now. And if we can find a creative way to get in on some morning weakness on the leading stock in that leading theme, I think that's, at least personally, that's something that I'll be focused on. Carvana, next up on the leaders list, higher highs, higher lows, nice gap up, strong close. Another name that's just riding that 5 day EMA higher. Anytime we do have some constructive pullback, it gets supported at the 10 day. And that's what the leaders are doing in a strong market like this. ZS, another cybersecurity name, higher highs, higher lows. Let's take a look at that after hours where we're trading. Barely down at all, not much trading volume. If CrowdStrike does sell off like pretty aggressively in the morning, seeing where this comes in, maybe at the 5-day EMA, that would be a really big shakeout. And it, it's not going to be easy to buy something like that on the shakeout, but it's something that I'll have alerts set and we'll watch for. Next, we have CoreWeave. This has been the risk on IPO of this market cycle. Monster stock. We've now gone from $35 up to $150. Let's measure that. So from April 21st to June 3rd, so not even 2 months, um, we're up 350% in 30 trading days. Monster price action. And why so many people do track IPOs when the market's in an uptrend over the 20-day EMA is when people feel risk on, the IPOs that are brand new, that have shown that they can make very sharp moves in the short term, those are names that we want to be focused on. This is a name that I also missed, but we're getting a little bit late in the cycle. We're seeing support at the gap zone here above the 10-day, followed it up by two unfilled gaps now. Close at the high on pretty massive volume and up 25% today. This was the largest, about that. This is the largest 1-day move in the cycle, if I'm not mistaken. I know we had the 22% on the 16th, but yeah, today's 25% was the largest 1-day move. Definitely getting a little parabolic here. If we see another gap up and massive volume come in, highest volume ever, that could be the last bar to set up a potential blow off top. It could even happen tomorrow. I'm a little skeptical that it will, just because the market is breaking out of that consolidation. We still have all the leading stocks like we're going through acting well outside of CrowdStrike with a gap down. Um, I think this still has one more day of really punishing people that are trying to short too early, just because we haven't seen the highest volume ever. And we're still coming out of that consolidation. We still have market leaders acting well. I'm I'm going to be cautious shorting this until we get like another gap up and then just overwhelming volume. But if you're long, CRWV, monster move, 350% in 30 trading days. Definitely a chart to study. Roblox continues to act perfectly well. Higher highs, higher lows over the 5-day EMA, closed flat on the day, deserved some rest. Any pullback, even to this gap zone at the 20-day EMA, that could be a potential buy zone on any market pullback, but I mean, it's not giving you any room to get in here. Netflix, another name that closed basically flat on the day, but had higher highs, higher lows. Did make a new all-time high, but again, closed flat on the day. And then GEV, nice action, closed right on the open price. Little doji over the 5-day EMA. Overall, great move. Okay, now we'll go to some of the stocks that are either on my watch list or I thought were key stocks to cover. What I'm going to do is sort them by industry. So if we get like on a singular topic, it'll be a little bit easier going through the list here. So we have first aerospace and defense with KTOS. We saw the chart of ITA, that nice clean uptrend. I'm reversed here. So nice clean uptrend rising that on the 5-day EMA. Similar action here. We pulled back into the 10, got supportive, two more gaps up. Just a really strong stock and one of the leaders in that aerospace group that I want to keep an eye on. No position on this, but if we pull back in the 5-day EMA and that gap zone low at $38, that's a potential ad spot for anyone. DRS, good shakeout on Thursday of the support gap here to the 20-day EMA. Inside day on Friday, gapped up, strong action on Monday, and then we did have some weakness after the morning where we came into the 5-day EMA, but then closed right near high of day and at new highs. So acting well. Anything trending over the 5-day EMA, you don't want to get, um, you don't want to be too quick to take profits on that. AEVA, this was a high tide flag setup that we covered a couple times on Sunday and on Monday's stream. Lower highs, lower lows yesterday, just a nice consolidation day on lower volume, getting into that 5-day EMA. And today we had just a clean move through yesterday's high, through Friday's high, and then through the all-time high. So up 14% this is the type of action that you can see out of high tide flags that just pull back to the 10-day EMA in a nice controlled manner. One pullback to really set up that flag, and now we're breaking out on heavier volume. So great action there. Just wanted to cover that setup. Tesla, a little bit weaker today, did close up 0.5%, but closed in the lower half of the daily range, right near the low of the day, back at the 10-day EMA. After yesterday's shakeout, I expected stronger action, kind of the action that we were having in the morning. Unfortunately, just a little bit of weakness there, and uh, we've now seen a little bit more distribution recently than what the market's showing. So I'm not sure what's causing that relative weakness, but if you entered on the pullback into the support gap area, then you have your stop at the 20-day EMA, and it's still nice and tight risk there. Otherwise, I would be a little hesitant to play this until we get a more kind of uniform setup. SFM, just wanted to point this out, had a little volatility after yesterday's breakout, came back into the 10-day EMA, but did close back over that support gap and kind of in that breakout zone. We'll see if we can hold this area in the 5-day EMA and continue this breakout here. Okay, so I'm going to start with CEG because this was the news. Meta partnered with them on their AI energy, opened well up on the day, but we opened right at the high of the day, closed right near the low of the day, still above the 5-day EMA. So it's not horrible, but you'd expect this type of news to really get the stock going. And this is the second time that we've had good news turn into a sell the liquidity event. We had Nvidia before, and we'll cover that in more detail at the end. But we had Nvidia on Thursday where they gapped it up on earnings right into a resistance gap, and people sold that down. And now we had this AI energy type play where the entire group gapped up in a big way, but we saw distribution the entire day. CEG actually closed better than some of the other names above the 5-day EMA, but just one thing that's a little concerning to me. We saw it also with OKLO, nice big gap up, but again, closing near the low of the day, down 5%. Really disappointing because this was one of my picks for the Wolf Financial competition. And with the gap up, we start the competition with Tuesday's opening price. So I'm going to be, there's no way I'm winning this competition after that open and that close. But as long as this holds the HVC and the 10-day EMA, allow for the volatility to kind of contract here, and then maybe we'll get a setup. Maybe we'll build out this handle in a more proper way before we can break out. The other name was SMR in that group. Similar action, a little bit stronger than OKLO, only down 0.9%, but similar overall structure to the day. Open near the high, close near the low, close at the 5-day EMA, still above the HVC, the high volume close, and the 10-day EMA. So as long as we stay above that area, I still think that this is a group to focus on and still think that this can set up, but we want volatility to contract so we can get a better size position on with a more logical stop. Let me jump back here to NRG because this is the best acting energy stock that I noticed outside of GEV. Today, higher highs, higher lows. We pushed through and closed above this gap down zone that was kind of holding us back as we flagged out here. Great action today. If we see more distribution out of like the energy type names, just pulling back and letting the 10-day catch up for a higher low in this kind of flag would be ideal. Then you could take it through today's high as a potential entry point. QBTS, this is something that I've been watching for a while, haven't quite pulled the trigger. Maybe the buy point was yesterday through Friday's high after that shakeout under the 10-day and Friday's low. But acting really well, higher highs, higher lows today, up 3.3%. This is one of the quantum names that is, it's the best looking quantum name out there. IONQ, RGTI, a little bit weaker. I think QBTS is the leader in that group right now. So holding up really well. If we can flag out for a couple more days, then we could use today's high as a pivot entry. But I kind of think that the buy point was yesterday on that. EVLV, similar kind of setup to QBTS, trying to get over the HVC. We did close slightly over it, but still not a lot of power in this name yet. It is thinner, and right now the market was rewarding some more liquid names. We saw the liquid leaders acting well, while uh, some of the more speculative names got hit here. So I'm not as interested in this anymore. If we can move above the HVC, above the 5-day EMA, and then maybe pull back for a higher low into the HVC area, then I could take that, but just wanted to update that chart. Toast, another less liquid name that's still having trouble getting going, still some relative weakness. So that's why I would never buy the stock on strength. If you study the history of the chart, buying on strength probably has never made you a profit, except for earnings gaps. Um, just still waiting for this, for the volatility to contract a little bit, for the pullback into the HVC, the support gap area, the 20-day moving average. That is going to be the buy point that I'd take versus 40, but I don't need to rush it. I thought Friday was probably the right move to get in. Now it looks like we're going to get like a true test of the HVC before it turns up again. So I'm glad I'm staying patient on this. But overall, great base. Putting in the handle. Don't want to completely ignore it. BTSG, more speculative name, very thin. Trades $60 million a day, so not too thin, but kind of putting in this cup handle. You have the 5 and the 10-day EMA setting up, getting tighter here. So looking for a break. If we gap up, that would be the best case scenario, where gap up and then take out that 2450 area as a potential entry, and then your stop is the 10-day EMA. Root, another name that has potential to get going. I'm kind of using this as like another metric, or not another metric, but just another indicator of how this setup moves. Do we break to the upside, break to the downside? We have a couple warning signs with CEG and that kind of news. We had some other stocks like Frog, Grinder. There was a third one that didn't quite work today, that have had some volatility around the breakout points. So just kind of setting up some other stocks to say, okay, if we break to the upside, that's good news, and we can see the markets continuing to stay strong. If we break to the downside, there's another kind of little warning signal that we can use to get prepared if the market is going to have any pullback. So through today's high is an entry on the long side and a stop at today's low. If it gets going, it shouldn't kind of violate that area. Snow, not doing anything wrong. Higher highs, higher lows above the 5-day EMA. Any kind of market pullback or shakeout, getting this to the 10-day EMA and the support gap, right at that $200 level is a spot that I would look to get involved. TEM, this is going to be one of my main focuses for tomorrow. IPO stock, so it's has the ability to move very quickly, not quite the same velocity as CRWV, but I'm using that and thinking, okay, if we're in a risk on market, we've seen how some IPOs can act. This IPO has really frustrated a lot of people. You could see a ton of wavy action in the base here. But one thing that caught my eye was this gap down on a short report coming into the 50-day moving average, too tight bars above the 50. Yesterday, we explode of 15% back through the 5, the 10, the 20-day EMA. And then today, we get a tight bar below this resistance gap. And I remembered when I was studying some previous leaders before, APP, in a previous base back. I remember this because I was in Spain for my honeymoon. And I was watching this chart because it was such a beautiful base after a monster move. It ran from $9 up to $40. And then it put in a base just like SMCI's base before it broke out. And I bought the stock as it was coming through here, and then I left. And unfortunately, I got stopped out on this day where we broke through the 5, the 10, and settled on the 20-day moving average. And we had two tight days above the 50-day moving average. We shot up 12% the next day, back through the 5, the 10, the 20-day EMA, and then we started to trade tight. And from that point, we had another monster move from $47 all the way up to $500. I'm not saying that TEM is going to do that, but what I'm saying is I've seen this pattern before of a stock that had frustrated a lot of people because you saw how wavy that base was after a very long run. TEM had a initial very quick move from 25 up to 70, 72, excuse me, $72, about a 200% move. So it got everyone interested. Then continued to shake people out, shake people out. Everyone's frustrated. The market's really turning up. Why is this stock not turning up? We get the short report, come back into the 50-day moving average, stay there for 2 days, just like APP, follow through the 5, 10, 20-day EMAs on big volume and strong close, 15%. Then we start trading tight. So the setup is there, the idea is there. Whether it's going to work or not, I don't know. But this is a name that I'm going to be focused on to try to put some risk into the market. And if this does work, then I have the blueprint to kind of keep an eye on to see if it's acting right. Covered SMR, CRS, another day, just another 2.5% higher. I swear this is the stock that I'll follow my entire career and I'll never make a dollar on it, but just good action. Watching for a pullback into the 20-day EMA and this support gap at 230. WPM updating this gold stock or precious metal stock. Great action today. Inside day, but closed right at the high of the day, well above the 5-day EMA. And if you look at GDX, that acted much weaker. So compared to the ETF, this individual stock is leading. And that's what we want out of the stocks that we're investing in. Next two stocks, CRK and EQT, both have very similar setups, both in the oil and gas exploration field. And oops, sorry. So I just wanted to put that on your radar as a potential theme that's shaping up. EQT, really nice double bottom base, rallied up, put in the handle, shook out to the 20-day EMA on the 30th, and then we're right back into highs, trading tight above the 5-day EMA. CRK, similar action. I don't know if I would call this a double bottom base, not quite, but similar overall structure to it. Rally up a little bit stronger than EQT because we made new highs and then we started to consolidate, but not doing anything wrong, letting that 20-day EMA catch up, and then pushing through to new highs would be a potential buy point. Next, we get to the semiconductors, and it was kind of a mixed bag today. CRDO, another name that gapped up, ran early on, just like NVIDIA, but got to a resistance gap near the highs and sold off the rest of the day on just massive volume. So another time where good news is being used as exit liquidity. Again, we're seeing so many strong stocks in the liquid leaders that this isn't making me overly bearish, but I'm just starting to put a couple of these kind of boxes or checked boxes together where we're seeing more volatility around breakout points. We're seeing potential parabolic moves in CRWV. Um, some of the good news is being sold, and right now we're seeing CrowdStrike gap down. But overall, I think that the action out of the market is still too strong to get bearish. Once we see heavy volume breakdowns or a gap down that doesn't get filled out of the indexes, then we can start to be more cautious or play to the short side. But until then, these are just some warning signs that we're taking note of. AVGO, monster stock, leader of the semis right now, back into new highs, has earnings on Thursday, so we'll see how we respond to that. NVIDIA, good action off of that kind of post-earnings shakeout. We came into the 10-day EMA, rallied back through, and now we're nearly back where we were opening on earnings. MSTR, nice kind of turn up with Bitcoin today. couple of tight trading days above the 50-day moving average, and then pushed through the 5, 10, and 20-day moving averages today. I did start a position on this right at the open as we were coming through this area. Not super large, but I do think if the market's going to continue higher, Bitcoin is going to help lead us out of that. And MSTR trades in line with Bitcoin. So not rocket science there. And then two last stocks to cover. Dave, this is holding that support gap, 10-day EMA, kind of getting a little, maybe you would say bear flaggish here, but I would just look at this as consolidation after a shakeout. If we come into the support gap again, that's a potential buy point versus the low of what was that, Friday. So really tight risk. You got the $200 round number there. We just want to shake that out, and then you would I would buy as it comes back through that support gap zone. Then GWRE, this is a software name that has been a monster since 2023, since this bull market started. 57 up to 218, and then reported earnings, and is up to 242 after hours. Just extremely strong price action. So I wanted to highlight that as well. That's going to be the market recap for Tuesday, June 3rd. If you guys enjoyed it, please leave a like, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And if you have any stocks that I should be taking a look at in the next video, leave them in the comments and I'll be sure to add them. All right, have a great rest of your night.